We're going to go ahead and get started. Let me just briefly introduce you to those who don't know you. It's, it feels like it's a nice crowd of folks who actually have a sense of who Awesome Ahsa is. So he needs no introduction to those who have met him. Those who have not, Ahsa is a food researcher. He looks at food as our healing. And there are some things that he does that, what you doing? that he is some herbs that he would actually couple with our diets, but he's definitely, studied with under the same guidelines. I won't even put you under Sabi. I put you side by side because I think you've done a lot of the same work that Sabi has done. You just don't get the act. Go ahead, Asa. Tell us about yourself. Give us a little bit.
Tell you about myself.
Yes.
What? Well, I'm going to tell you about the aspect of me related to the topic of discussion. How's that? Okay, because time is short, and that's the most important thing is to get to the points of a topic of discussion. So, Shannette, you disappeared. What happened? No. So anyway, he's here. Back in 1987, I moved to LA and from New York. And while I was there, I started feeling sick. And this was probably more towards the later part of the 80s, like maybe 89, 90, 89. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. And this is when they had AIDS was coming up on the scene. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me what was wrong with me. But I was like really sick, I really felt badly and I was struggling. So I was going to the doctors, and the doctors were like, running these tests on me and running stress tests on me and having me do all sorts of crazy stuff, run around the hospital and stuff. And they couldn't find anything wrong with me. And so they started telling me it was all in my head. And I was like, okay, these guys are full of it because I know that something's wrong with me. And so um, I was just like really seeking, like, what's wrong with me, what I should do, And a friend of mine who I let rent a room in my house, I told him what was going on. And he said, man, you need to go to this clinic in Venice Beach. It's an alternative health clinic. You need to go over there. And I'm not a book person. I'm not really a reader. And so I would go.
There you go.
You
Okay.
can hear. You can hear me now.
Yes, yes.
All right. So I used to go. So I went to the health clinic in Venice, and I started getting like colonics done, and just different little things. They were, getting me to get my health together, and they had books for sale there. So I started picking up books while I was there. Anytime I went there, I would pick up a couple books, and I'd go home and read them. And so I'm reading all these books, and I read books on. I don't know if anybody's heard of Max Gerson. I I've read probably 5, 6 books on Max Gerson. Um, this guy Scott Gregory, I read a few of his books. He was big during the AIDS crisis. Audio cassette of this brother speaking and in Chicago, and I listened to this audio cassette, and based off of all the books I had read and all the information I had read, I was like, man, a brother, he knows all this, and I knew that he was telling the truth. And I'm talking about Dr. Sabi. This is before people knew who he was, before he, got what renown and all that. And so in my reading journey, I was reading all these books, and they all were like blowing my mind because I'm saying to myself, if these books are true, then that means everything I grew up knowing in relationship to health was a lie. So I just kept reading and reading. Then I picked up a book called Rational Fasting by this guy named Arnold Ehret. And I read that book, and that blew my mind. That sent me over the top, because he simplified everything and made me totally understand everything in regards to really healing and getting the body together and everything else. Um, so I just kept, and I started living it and doing, everything that he was saying that he was promoting. I started doing it, and I started feeling much better. Then I listened to the audio cassette. I would listen to it all the time with his brother, Dr. Sabi, speaking. And so I went on this quest to find him, and nobody knew who he was at the time. And it took me 6 months to find him. But how I found him, I don't know if you all are familiar with a show called, I think it was, I forget, I don't know, it was Gil Noble was the host. It was Gil, yeah. So um, I got in touch with the show, and I said, had Dr. Sabi been on this show? And he said, yes. I mean, the people said yes. And I said, do you have any contact information so I can get in touch with him? And they took my number. The following day, they can't call me back, and they gave me 3 phone numbers. So I would randomly call these phone numbers, all the time. And one Sunday morning, I decided to call, and I called the number that was in Brooklyn, and this man answers the phone. I said, I'm looking for Dr. Sabi. He said, this is he. And I was like, oh, wow. And we just hit it off, our energies just were great. We were on the phone for like 3 hours. And the very first question I asked him was, had he heard of Arnold Ehret? And he says, Arnold Ehret, that's a bad white boy. That's a bad white boy. And he says, the reason why Arnold Ehret and I have so much success curing everything is because we occupy the same perspective. He says, but I've taken it further than Ehret because I understand genetics role in everything. And I said, oh, okay. And so then he began to question me about what I'm eating. He's like, so what are you eating? And I said, well, I'm not, because at that time I was just living off of juices. And he says, well, what are you juicing? I used to take whole cloves of garlic and throw them in the blender with water and just blend them up and then just drink it down. And so when I told him, I said, well, I take garlic. He said, stop. And I'm like, what the hell you mean stop, man? I said, garlic? He said, garlic is poison. I said, man, garlic ain't no poison about garlic. I said, garlic is good for you, man. It's a natural antibiotic. It fights cancer, da, da, da. He says, garlic is poison. It just destroys the mucous membrane of the human body. It's not natural. I'm like, what the hell? Right? He says, what else you drinking? I said, oh, man, I drink carrots. He says, stop. I'm like, man, come on, man. Carrots? I said, carrots are good for you, man. They're good for your eyes. They got beta carotene and, vitamin E and C and D, all this stuff, man. I said, carrots are good for you. He said, carrots are poison. Uh, they're not natural. So we went down this whole list of stuff. And I'm like, man, I can't eat anything. What the hell? Based off of what he's telling me. Then we got in this conversation. He told me all about when he was arrested and his trial and everything else. And so we ended up, talking for a long time. And then eventually I said, Sabi, I got to meet you. He says, well, next week I'll be in Chicago. I said, Chicago? I said, I'll be there. So I said, bye. And I got off the phone. I booked a reservation for Chicago. I flew to Chicago, and I had a pad. I wrote every question down I could think of. I had a little micro cassette recorder. And at 10 o'clock in the morning for 5 days, I knocked on his door at his little institute in Chicago. And I stayed there for 12 hours every day. And because I left 10 at night. And I just picked his brain apart. And we had a ball, we had a ball. And the questions that I asked that I did not understand his answers, I eventually, over time, they all fell into place. And so I got it, So then I came, well, while I was there, we had a conversation. I said, I probably could never be the herbalist you are because I can't travel like you. He told me he had been to every country on the planet. And I said, I'm not in a position to be able to travel like that. But I said, what I can do is I can start researching food and find out if it's really food, its origins and everything else. So what happened was the minute I got back from Chicago, got back to LA, I just fanatically was on this mission to start researching food. And so I was going every place. I was going to used bookstores, industrial agricultural libraries and stuff, just trying to find books, you know. Um, I have a lot of books that I liberated from libraries. And yeah, so I just started just like finding the deal out about food. And then I started really seeing that the stuff that we're being told is food that we eat is not food. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But Sabi used to always talk about, and I don't know if people are familiar with Sabi, most people probably are. And he talks about electric food, electric food, electric food. And he just talked about electric food, but he never really gave me an understanding of exactly what he was talking about, you know. But he told me that, all plants are dibasic. They have at least two um, ingredients that are their dominant useful ingredients to life, period. And so I was like, okay. And so I started researching food, and that always stayed in my head. But then some books I read by this Caucasian guy, Scott Gregory, I said, man, I need to meet this guy because I was really curious about his books. Because back then he was curing all these AIDS patients and stuff like that. And so I got in touch with him, and I went over to see him. And he had a machine called the Rife machine. It was invented in the 1920s, I believe, by a man named Royal Rife. And you all can look that up. And Rife figured a way out that he could cure basically any disease through electrical frequencies. And he had a machine. The book that the guy had was like that thick, and you would go into it and you look up a disease, and it would tell you what frequency would cure the disease. And he would just lay you on this table, and he had these little metal plates he put alongside you, and he'd send those frequencies through you. So, my research and everything, all of a sudden things started like popping in my head in relationship to electricity. Sabi talking about electric food, and he's curing people through what? Herbs and food. Scott Gregory's curing people through a machine that sends electrical frequencies. So then I had to get into, well, what is it in food that's electrical? And that was when that thing hit me. That was when the light bulb went on. I got it right, and I ain't telling. Nah, I'll tell you all because Jamie looks so serious. Um, so yeah, so the food thing in relationship to electricity, when you really understand food, the only thing that matters is minerals. Every organ in the human body is genetically coded to a mineral. There's a dominant mineral that addresses every organ and every function of the body. But though your organs and stuff still have a multitude of different minerals that they're composed of, but there's always a dominant mineral. Like people say, okay, what's the mineral for the blood? Iron. What's the mineral for the teeth and the bones? Calcium. Mineral for the nervous system is potassium. Mineral for the skin is magnesium, right? So you got to know what those minerals address in relationship to healing. So all Sabi does is he knows that, and he knows what plants address those minerals. And when if you come to him with sickle cell anemia, leukemia, syphilis, anything like that, what he does, he gives you the plants that are high in the iron, and the disease disappears, right? It's really that simple. But everybody wants to make it complicated because we've gotten into the whole European concept of medicine and science and everything, trying to analyze things and figure it out on a level that we'll never be able to figure out. Because then basically you're basically trying to say you're playing God. You understand? We don't. It's not. We're not supposed to be trying to figure out what's the burdock leaf composed of. The burdock leaf was put here divinely with a purpose. So why are you concerned about what it's composed of? Because you could never make it, right? You could never make a burdock leaf, from the dust of the grounds. Like you couldn't make a deer or an animal. You can't make life. Man doesn't have the capacity to make life from the dust of the ground. So why are you trying to analyze something, break it down, figure out what its constituents are, and sell it like that? No, you can't do that because we don't have that capacity. What we're supposed to be doing is understanding the purpose of things that were put here divinely by God or nature, or however you want to address it. And then once you do that, everything will be fine. But now what the problem is everything's been so adulterated. There's been so many plants that man has created and introduced to the populace and introduced to nature, and that some of them have become what they call unrecallable species that, we don't know what we're doing. People talking about, oh, kale, collard greens. Oh, I ate my kale. I ate my collard greens. People still into carrots. Those are all made. Carrots are made in the 1700s in a laboratory in Holland. The Romans made kale, the first kale, and in the 1950s, I think it was, kale was morphed with gamma radiation. And so what they did is they exposed an older variety of kale to radiation, and it changed, and they harnessed and kept the change, and they introduced the kale that we have today. So just know. So that's just some of the stuff, on food. But the real key is really understanding what nature has and what nature, what is meant for us from nature. That's the key to everything. You understand? Because I'm tight with a lot of the farmers and people that have, farming and do all that kind of stuff out here in Atlanta, and I was in LA, and they don't really understand because they're trying to grow all this stuff, that all these crops that were developed in laboratories by man. They're not dealing with nature. A true farmer deals with nature. A true farmer deals with nature management, right? You go into a specific region, a geographic region, and you study the plants and you learn the plants in that region, and you see how they benefit you, and then you control and you manage those plants and grow those plants, and they support your life and everybody else's life. That's how we're supposed to be looking at it. But now, what do? Oh, we go and buy seed. 90% of the seed you get now is coming from pharmaceutical companies. So we're going to get the seed, then you plant the seed in the ground, and then you harvest. That's disobedience to nature. And then I used to tell in my lectures, I used to tell people all the time, every time you eat a carrot, you're supporting the destruction of the cycles of life and the environment that carrot grew in. People are like, what are you talking about? I said, because every place a carrot grows in the ground, you have to have destroyed something natural that had a divine purpose, that was obedient to the cosmic arrangement and the cycles of life for that environment. And you kill that so you can plant your kale and your collard greens and your carrots and your beets. All these things are developed by man and made by men. They're not natural. And that's what Sabi was trying to get people to understand. You know what I mean? But like when I used to do lectures, I used to bring, books and big flyers and blow-ups and everything so people could see what I'm talking about and get a better understanding. Because Sabi would just tell you, carrots are poison. And he'd leave it like that. And either you You like it or you don't. You know what I mean? And he would just leave it like that. I at least gave people something to go by. And then I tell people, don't even believe me. Research it yourself. Because most of the time, what's this crazy? Oh, Wikipedia. Wikipedia isn't as in depth as it could be, but generally they have some good information, and you can find out, like, if you just Google a plant that you eat, you can find out whether it's been crossed or hybrid or they made new varieties and all that. Yeah, so you could do that. So let me go back to this mineral thing real quick so people can really understand this, because I did a lecture in New Jersey. And the lecture in New Jersey, this is some years ago, um, there was a sister there who was a medical doctor that represented a pharmaceutical company. And at the end of the lecture, towards the end, in the question and answer, she asked me, "Where do you get your vitamin B and your B complexes from?" With an attitude, right? I said, "Well, I went through that already. I talked about that. If you had been paying attention, I wouldn't have to go through it again." But I already had known who she was because my friend who had the venue um, told me who she was. So I said, "You're a medical doctor, right?" She said, "Yes." I said, "You represent a pharmaceutical company, right?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Tell everybody here what a vitamin is." She went mute. She just stood there like, and so I said, first of all, the word vitamin comes from two Latin words, vita, which means life, and minimum, minimus, which means small. So technically the word means small life, right? Which doesn't mean anything. So I looked at her and I said, if, can I grab and hold vitamin B12 in my hand? Can I pick vitamin B12 off a tree? You know what I mean? Can I take vitamin B12 and out of some dirt and hold it in my hand? And she's just standing there. I said, no, right? I said, better yet, what is the electrical equivalent? What's the electrical value of vitamin B12? Because everything that it truly exists has an electrical value because everything's in motion, molecules in motion, everything's in motion. So I said, what is the electrical equivalent for vitamin B12? How many ions per atom? And she said, and she just stood there like, and I said, there is no such thing. Vitamins, they're dead. It's a concept. I said the concept was developed to sell substance that they wanted to market as food that's not truly food. So she's like being all quiet, and I said, listen, the commonality between life, plants in the ground is minerals. That's the commonality. If I told her, I said, listen, minerals come in two forms in the earth. They come in a phosphate and an oxide. An oxide is a rock or a metal, like your cast iron skillet. Steel comes from iron. Life can't eat cast iron. Life can't eat the oxide, the ore iron, or any other oxide or ore. That's why, that people don't understand when the medical industry gives you iron oxide because they say you need iron and you get constipated. It's because you're eating something that the body really doesn't digest. But you have oxides, which are metals, phosphates. Anything phosphate burns to ashes. If you burn the human body, it burns to ashes. If you burn plants, it burns to ashes. You burn animals, it burns to ashes. Right? So that's the commonality. So if I dig up soil and take it to a laboratory and tell them to tell me everything that they find in it, they're not gonna find any vitamins in it. None. They're gonna find all the minerals of the mineral spectrum in some degree or another. If I take a plant and burn it and take the ashes to a laboratory and say, analyze this plant and tell me what's in it, in these ashes, they're going to look at it, they're going to find minerals, the same minerals that's in soil. If I take a human body and burn it and take the ashes to a laboratory and say, hey, break down these ashes, tell me what these ashes are composed of. Are they going to find vitamins? B, C, D? No, they're not going to find them. They're going to find minerals. Minerals are the key to life, and minerals are electricity. So now I'm going to break it down. So after I finish this, if anybody is hearing this and doesn't understand minerals after that, shame on you, because it's simple to get. All minerals is electrical frequencies, period. That's all a mineral is. And it comes in two forms, oxides and phosphates. So many ions per atom, right? Now, how it works in nature is a process called iontophoresis. And I don't usually like to use, talk scientifically and all that, use these terms, but I'm doing this to paint a picture so you understand. You know what I mean? What's the brother's name? Yaki or something? Yaki, who I admire. I think he's a brilliant young man, but I think he goes too deep into scientific because he's schooled. He comes from like university education, and so he's talking above people's heads. But I'm just going to use this right now so you understand. There's a process called iontophoresis. Iontophoresis is a process by which plants take minerals out of the ground because animals can't do that. Animals can't eat dirt and get nutrient value from them. That's the purpose of plants on the earth. So what happens is the plants in the ground take the ions out of the ground, and they hold those ions in their fibers, right? And then whatever animal or whatever life form comes around and eats that or use that plant, there's a transfer of those ions in the form of minerals to that entity. When you look at the cycles of life on the earth, there's always a beautiful order to it and patterns to it, right? So in every geographic region, what do you have? You have the soil. You have all the insects, microbes, and bacteria and different things that live in the soil. From there, you have the plants, right? The plants get the life from the soil. You have the vegetarian animals that eat the plants. And the vegetarian animals eat the plants just like the ladybug eats little insects. The vegetarian animals eat the plant. What did it do? Carnivores eat the vegetarian animals. Then the scavengers eat everything else. And that creates that balance. And whatever remains decomposes and decays and transcends back into the soil where the process starts again. And that's the cycles of life in any environment. In any environment on the earth, there's already animals and plants, insects, microbes, everything in specific geographic environments that form and make up those cycles of life, right? And it's like you tell people all the time, you have the deer in North America or in the northern hemisphere, right? And then you have a gazelle or an antelope in the southern hemisphere, southwest hemisphere, right? They look similar in structure, but they're two totally different entities. And they support the cycles of life in the geographic region that they were put there by the creator or nature. And what happens is, if I take the deer and put it in Africa, what's going to happen? The deer is going to last 10 minutes. It's not going to know how to survive in Africa. It's going to be, one, it's going to be too hot. Two, the predators there are just going to just destroy it like that. If I take an antelope or a gazelle out of Africa and take it to North America and put it in the woods of North America, thing's going to die of pneumonia. It's not suited for that environment. Now, if I take a deer and take a gazelle, and say I take them to Europe, and I find a way to crossbreed them some way and make a new animal, what is that animal's purpose? What geographic region is it supposed to be in? what region does it serve as far as the cycles of life? What is its divine purpose? It doesn't have one. And that's what we're looking at today with plants. And because the same thing applies to plant. If I take a plant from one geographic region and a plant from another geographic region and make another plant, what is that plant's purpose? And who's it supposed to serve? What cycles of life and what environment, what region? Because everything was put here for us to survive and to be healthy and to be happy. The state of Texas alone could feed the whole world with natural food. Feed every person on the planet if we were dealing with natural food. But all the food is adulterated. We're not eating food. Shannette, you have any questions for me?
First of all, thank you for that beautiful insight. I just feel like you just have such a wellspring of knowledge that I had to have you just to come and share all of that. There are a couple things. I want you to name the books one more time so that people can have an opportunity to write them down.
Okay. I got some books to drop on y'all.
Yeah,
Right?
give us a few.
Okay. There's a book I'm going to tell everybody to try to get their hands on. I think it came out, if I'm not mistaken, in 1983. And they took it off the shelves by 1985. It was gone. It's called Altered Harvest. It's written by a guy named Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle, Altered Harvest. He worked for the Department of Agriculture for the United States. You need to read that book.
Okay.
That's the mind blower. It's a mind blower because
Is it talking about the precursors of Monsanto's?
Oh man, that's a book that you should read. You should read Arnold Ehret's book. Both his two books. Arnold Ehret is EHRET, Rational Fasting and the Mucusless Diet Healing System.
And mucusless diet?
Mucusless Diet Healing System.
And who's the author?
Arnold Ehret, EHRET. Arnold Ehret cured every disease known to mankind. He cured people that had speech impediments. He cured people that were mentally retarded. And he died around, I think he died in 1922. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, we had Dr. Bombay on the other day, and one of the things that he said, which I'll concur with, is that the only real illness is mucus.
That's everybody knows that. Who's healing anything? There's only one disease. Sabi used to say there's only one disease, mucus. And it's correct. You understand? Because and there's so many contributing factors to mucus. Because I used to say you have environmental toxins that destroy cells and create stuff. You got chemical toxins that are on things and in things and everything else that the human body can't use for anything, and you ingest them, you breathe them in or whatever, they become mucus. They become toxin, pollution, waste in the human body, right? Then you have food, things that you eat that are unnatural, like starch. Any starchy foods are not good for you. You know what I mean? The starch just creates mucus in the human body. You know, I mean, everybody likes their starches and likes the starch and to feel full from eating starches and everything, but they're not good for you. They're toxic to the human body.
Did I spell his name right?
What's that?
I put it in the Arnold Ehret, EHRET. Is that right?
That's correct. That's perfect.
Okay.
The mucusless diet and rational fasting. Yeah. So, like when I read rational fasting first, and it just blew me away. I was just like, oh my gosh, because it made literally everything that I had studied and read prior to that reading that it brought everything to one focal point. And I was like, I can't even tell you, I was so high from reading that book. And then I went ahead and read the other one, the mucusless diet. and the information's in there. If you just read those two books and applied those to your body, you don't have nothing to worry about. You know, we all, we think we need to eat, because I'm at a point now. See, I know all these people are out here, and see, I don't really like to. I've been real quiet using Sabi's name because there's so many people jumping on the Sabi bandwagon. You know what I mean? And selling their herbs out here, talking about Sabi approved herbs and all this. And I just don't want to be a part of that. You know what I mean? I loved him. I learned a lot from him. I used to, he used to get sea moss from me. He used to get his sea moss from me in LA. Um, I used to supply him information on food. You know what I mean? Because I was doing all the research, and I started a company shortly thereafter called Nutrition Research.
Okay, Todd, I got you. That fasting is the cure that would pull our energy away from the things that are really making us sick, which is the food
Right.
time.
See, people. Okay, let me explain this. Get this through y'all's heads that don't get this. The human body is the most divine living entity that we know of. Period. There is not a higher living entity that we know of except, the creator or something like that. But on the earth plane, the human body is it. The human body is a self-regenerating, self-healing life form, right? You get a cut. What's the first thing you do when you get a wound or injury? You clean it, right? And then you take the necessary steps for it to repair itself. I have not written any books. I've tried.
We got some questions for you.
I know, but let me finish this
Yeah,
real
yeah,
quick.
absolutely.
Um, so what happens is, knowing that the only thing that can kill you and destroy the human body is ignorance. That's it, right? The powers that want to be have us in subjection to misinformation, right? And what they do is they do this. They dangle something out in front of you, which is called what is it? Education. Their education. And we decide, oh, we need to learn that. And it leads to nothing. Because they're trying to figure out and control everything, and so they're working to do that, and they have us working for them, trying to do that instead of being obedient to what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to know the purpose of everything that God gave us, nature gave us, and living in harmony with that. We're not supposed to be trying to figure out everything, what it's composed of, nah, it doesn't make sense. The birds don't do that. We're supposed to be the highest form of intelligence on the planet. But yet you got all sorts of creatures that live longer than us. So it's like we're the ones out of order. Nature's not out of order. Only way nature is disobedient, goes out of order, is because we cause it to be disobedient and go out of order. I used to tell people all the time, rabbits don't eat carrots. Rabbits don't know what carrots are. But everybody thinks carrots and rabbits, right? But there's no such thing as a carrot in nature.
What would a rabbit eat naturally? Just out of curiosity. And
I'm not sure what green plants it really eats, but it eats, like I see rabbits all the time, around here. So, I don't know if it eats dandelion greens or wild cabbage greens, wild mustards, whatever. You know what I mean? There's also a host of plants, but I do know it eats plants.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Eat plantain is called, plantago mayor. So, yeah, we just have to understand. But the human body, internally, if you get an illness, what are you supposed to do? Same thing you do if you get a wound. You clean it. Then what you do is you stop everything. You stop everything so that your body can recalibrate and do what it's designed to do. But we got away from that. It's like I tell people all the time, you really don't, if you really are deep enough, you really don't need the herbs. if you really have the discipline. Friend, his name is Kevin Stennis, right? Back in like 1990 or so, he opened up a raw foods restaurant in Los Angeles. He came from a wealthy, affluent black family his father started a chicken franchise called the Golden Bird in LA, and he became a multimillionaire from that franchise. Kevin was the odd sheep of the family. Kevin left Los Angeles, came to Atlanta, and studied with a brother named Latham, something like that, raw foods, and went back to LA and opened up Golden Health Foods Cafe, which was a raw foods restaurant. Kevin never ate one thing from his restaurant, not one. Kevin didn't eat. Kevin hasn't really eaten food since like 1990. And Kevin will whoop everybody's ass that's on this call.
So where is he getting his nutrients? Is he a breatharian? What are you talking
No,
about?
he's not a breatharian. What he does, right? He would go down to the docks where all the produce comes into the city, into LA, and he'll buy he used to buy these cases of these melons called Sherilyn melons. And he'll buy a case of those, and he'll take them home, and he'll cut it open and taste it. If it's not sweet, he throws the whole fruit in the trash, the whole melon if it's not sweet. And his line was, "I worship the farmer that grows the sweetest fruit." And if he'd wait until he found the sweet melon, take that and put it in the juicer, drink it, and go about his business.
So
And
you
that's it.
only do that one, you said a Sherilyn?
Sherilyn melon, yeah. I haven't even found those melons since I've been in Atlanta. I can't find them anywhere. I don't even know what they are. But yeah, so that just shows you. And see, at the time that I met him, at the restaurant, and we became good friends, I was teaching capoeira. That's Jamie knows. So I was teaching capoeira classes in Los Angeles, right? And I thought I was in shape. And he invited me to come over and work out with him one day. Let me tell you something. That man damn near killed me in 5 minutes. No kidding. I'm serious. That man, I was like, oh hell no. And he's in phenomenal shape. He has literally all he is flesh on bone, but he's ripped. He's so toned. You can see the muscle striations in his body and everything else. Unfortunately, he got held up at the restaurant, and some young brothers came in there and held him up at gunpoint. And so he, after they walked out, he took the cash register, emptied the cash register, gave all the money to the little Mexican cat that was his helper in the restaurant, and got his juicer and left and never went back. He said, I'm trying to do a service to the community, and this is what I get. And so he decided to go to law school. He went to law school, became a lawyer, started working he became a DA, and now he's a Superior Court judge in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
And the boy don't eat. He don't eat none. It's a trip. So yeah, so I'm talking about him is because we think that we need to eat, but the human body doesn't live off of bulk. The human body's a juicer. That's exactly what it is. When you put something in your mouth, you chew it, which means you masticate it, you swallow it. Your body goes through an extraction process. It takes the liquid out, and the solid, it runs down through your digestive system, and you defecate it out. The liquid circulates through the body. Then you eventually, what happens to the liquid? You either urinate it out, cry it out, sweat it out, spit it out, right? So your body does not keep the liquid isn't the nutrient value of what you eat. The solid isn't the nutrient value of what you eat. The nutrient value of what you eat is the electricity. And in 2003, I had a radio program in Los Angeles. And then I moved to LA. I moved to Atlanta in 2004, so I shut down the radio program. But in 2003, let me get this right now, medical doctors won the Nobel Prize in science. A scientist won the Nobel Prize in medicine. Now, to get me, and you can research all this too, right? But they were all playing with the same thing. They understand that every cell in the human body lives off of a mineral, right? And every cell, but they couldn't figure out, what baffled them is how the cells can differentiate minerals. So if a cell if a cell requires iron and it comes in contact with calcium ion, it won't take that iron. It doesn't do anything to it, right? The only thing that'll nourish that cell if it requires iron is iron. If the cell requires calcium, the only thing that will nourish that cell is calcium, the ion, the electrical energy. And they couldn't figure that out. But in my lectures prior to that, I used to tell people all the time, cells are genetically coded to a specific mineral. That's just the way it is. It's like you can't put a 6-volt battery in a 9-volt toy because the electrical frequencies won't make it work. Mm-hmm. It won't accept that. And that's the same thing with cells, right? And so water, when you understand food, you eat it and you defecate out the bulk, the liquid passes through the body and supplies the body with what? Electrical energy, electrical impulses, electrical frequencies, right? Mm-hmm. And when it comes in contact with those cells, then that cell gets healthy, right? And those cells are healthy in that system, what it makes up, that organ. You know, it could be the immune system, the your blood, your lymphatic system, all that. So I thought about something. I just
you got a couple questions here. One.
Well, okay, but somebody asked a question about schizophrenia, right?
Yeah,
and I did see that pop up. So we're going to address all this because what I'm talking about now is really addressing all this, right? Because schizophrenia is nothing different than any other pathology, right? It's just affecting the brain, right? And different diseases affect the brain in different ways. You know what I mean? You can have Alzheimer's, you can have Parkinson's disease. First, when I went to meet Sabi the very first time, a man came in there 80 something years old and said, his daughter brought him in, and the man had Parkinson's disease really badly. Sabi put him on a program, and his Parkinson's disease went away. All the symptoms, everything went away, and he got all his faculties back and everything else. Then the doctors told him, well, the program that Sabi put him on had nothing to do with it, right? So the man went back to his old lifestyle and habits, and his Parkinson's started coming back. And that was when I was there. His daughter brought him back to see Sabi that day, right? When I was there was Sabi had a woman, a sister. She was 62 years old. She had 14 uterine fibroid tumors of varying sizes. Yeah, right. Sabi put her on a program. She got rid of all her fibroid tumors, passed every last one of them. Right.
How long did it take her?
I don't even know. I have no idea. But I'll just tell you this. At 62, her menstrual cycle started again, and she had a little girl.
Ooh.
She had a baby at 62. She got pregnant and had a baby. She cussed Sabi out so bad.
I know she did.
You and meth. You got me pregnant. Sabi, I didn't get you pregnant. Right? He's a funny. But understanding that, okay, so understand this. When mucus gets into the body, so everybody is genetic. I mean, everybody's chemical composition and is different. You know what I mean? You can have two identical twins and their body chemistry and everything is going to be different. Why? Because they're not doing the exact same things all the time, right? They're not eating the exact same things all the time. They're not in the same places all the time exactly together. So there's going to be differences, right? In their lifestyle and what they have. So it changes them chemically. They're different. Everybody is different chemically. Oh my gosh. I never heard.
Hey, I'll make sure this meeting. I'm gonna tap in with you.
That's a nice poncho you got. So
That was funny.
yeah, so what you have to understand is this, okay? Everybody has a weak system, a weakness in their system. There is no health content of beets. They're poison. Um, you see little things pop on the screen. So everybody's constitution is different. So I might be susceptible to, say, a heart attack. Shannette might be susceptible to Alzheimer's. You understand? Somebody else is susceptible to arthritis. Somebody else is susceptible to lung diseases. That's your own. See, healing is your own personal journey. And you can't, people ask me, well, how long is it going to take? I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know your chemical composition. All I know is if you do what you need to do, you'll get well. Yeah.
Somebody wants to know, wait a minute, somebody wants to know, what's the content of beets?
That's Jamie asking me that foolishness. The,
Oh.
the beets have no content. Beets destroy. They're not good for the blood. They tell people, all right, so listen, everything that you eat, I don't care what it is, if you eat horse manure, right, it's going to have some nutrient value, right? Everything's going to have some sort of nutrient value, but you have to look at and weigh the negative against the positive, right? And that's all Sabi was trying to show people when he's telling you don't eat carrots, right? Because over time the negative will outweigh the positive. Why? Because carrots kill red blood cells. That's exactly what they do. But they're not going to tell you that. Why? Because it's a billion-dollar industry. So why would they tell you that carrots are bad for you? So you have to understand that. So I'll give you an example. Carrots were made in Holland in the 1700s, right? Carrots break it down into the body into carbonic acid. And carbonic acid destroys red blood cells. Carbonic acid is the same thing that carbonate beverages with. And I don't know if you know, but they recommend, like during the Olympics, Olympic athletes shouldn't drink carbonated beverages because it depletes the body of oxygen, right? And oxygen is the number one thing the body needs. So why eat carrots?
I knew somebody used to juice carrots all the time.
I used to juice them religiously, like fanatically, until Sabi told me don't eat them. And then I did my homework on them and found out the deal on them. It's just like garlic. Everybody, oh, garlic. Sabi told me garlic was no good. I went into garlic deep. I got a book called, God, I think it was written in the 1600s, called The Origins of Cultivated Plants. I can't even say the author's name. Is like Alfonso de Candelet or something like that. Alphonse de Candelet. And what it is a compilation of historical, because every place people migrate to in history, there's always people that are scribes or people that write and document stuff and everything else, right? So this book is based off of documentations through history of, people coming into plants, getting introduced to plants, what they did with the plants, the migration of the plants and everything else, right? Egypt developed garlic. Garlic was developed by the Egyptians, right? The priests in Egypt said it was evil and it wasn't to be dealt with. But when the Greeks came into Egypt and got introduced to it, they went crazy. They liked it so much, they went crazy over it. You know what I mean? That's why in Greek cuisine, there's so much garlic. Everything has garlic in it in Greek cuisine, right? So just know. But what garlic does is a heavy blood thinner. And if you know anything about blood thinners like BHT and EDHT or whatever they are, the things you find in like processed, commercialized chips and different things, right? Those are all blood thinners. And what blood thinners do is they kill your body's ability for blood to clot effectively. They being the divine healing entity, which it is. The human body will heal itself in any situation if you do what you're supposed to do, which means shut down and fast. And that's the reality. Whether if you don't have the herbs to support you, just fast and drink juice.
And what
And
kind
just
of
make
juice
sure
would you
you're
recommend? What are we talking about?
green juices and certain fruits. That's a whole another discussion, like all the different fruits and vegetables that we really should be eating and everything else. Like green vegetables, like I tell people all the time, amaranth. The amaranth green is the top vegetable that we eat, um, that can be eaten according to agricultural science. I was talking, who was I talking to?
That was me.
Somebody about finding that
Yeah, because
that
I
oil
found it.
tail.
Remember I was
Okay,
going,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Because I could find it. So everybody out there, there's a brother named Jan Carew. He was from Guyana, right? He was a peer to Ivan Van Sertima. He he. I had a lecture on audio cassette way back when, back in the day, of him talking on agriculture. And he says that the most nutritious plant known to man on the planet is the amaranth plant. And it grows like almost everywhere. It grows all over the place, just naturally, right? All over it goes all over the planet. Um, he talks about in Africa, there was a famine in some region, and they came across these one tribe that wasn't even being affected by the famine, and all they were eating was the amaranth plant, and they were just living life and happy, healthy, and not even tripping on anything. So just know. But I always recommend that. Now, amaranth is the plant that they make the dish callaloo from in the Caribbean. That's the number one plant. The name of the dish is callaloo, right? And they make callaloo from different plants. They'll make it from the amaranth plant. They'll make it from dasheen bush, which is not good. And they'll also make it from, sometimes they make it from spinach. Sometimes they make it from spinach and okra. You know what I mean? So that is the name of the dish. It's callaloo. But sometimes you can go to some markets and amaranth plant will be labeled callaloo. So you can find it as callaloo. And I recommend you eat that, juice it, like if you got really gravely and deathly ill, right, where your pathology could potentially be life threatening, then I would say, you fast, start drinking, juicing amaranth if you can get it, watercress, dandelion, mustard greens, before kale, before collard greens, before all that, mustard greens, right? Trying to think of some other green leaf plants. If anybody has any idea, you can ask me, because I got senior memory.
What about plantain?
Which one? What do you mean? The plantain, the plant? Plantago
Yeah.
mayor or planta? Yeah, well, that's phenomenal for you.
Plantain? Like the banana?
Not the banana. There's a plant called plantain, right? Its botanical name is Plantago mayor, and then there's Plantago. I can't think of the other one. Asada, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is that the leaf that grows around the plantain?
No, the one I'm talking about is it grows in your yard. It's a little leaf that grows in your yard. Everybody knows it. When I'm gonna find it. Whenever yeah, like for a while I found a yard that had it, so I was like picking it and juicing it.
What about dandelion?
Definitely. Hey, you.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good now.
All right.
We're gonna create this here.
Dandelion is phenomenal for you. And there's so many wild plants, I just can't, like, my mind is not even going there right now.
Dandelion.
That you can eat. Let me think. Oh, I find it growing all the time, especially out here. Yellow dock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, learn yellow dock. Learn
Now,
the
yellow
plant.
dock, I thought you had to have that in a mixture with dandelion and burdock.
You don't have to have it there. It's
No?
iron dominant. No, yeah, it's iron dominant. So, yeah, you can just eat. You could juice it. You know what I mean? When I see it, I'll just dig it up, get the roots and the greens and all. You know what I mean? What do you call it? Scallions. Uh,
Scallions are natural?
yeah, they call them wild onions, little scallions. Dang,
So
what
what,
else?
Asa, what about like red onion, yellow onion?
No, yellow onions are okay, but red onions are bad news.
You said red
Huh?
onions are
Yeah,
okay?
red onions are no good. Red onions no good. I mean, I eat red onions when people cook them. I don't buy them. Like, okay, so listen. The thing is, when it comes to this whole thing, I tell people all the time, don't get religious about the food. You understand? Because everything's messed up. You know, everything's adulterated to some degree or another. I don't care what 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 you're eating, right? But the key is you want to eat the things that are the most nutrient dominant things, right? And so when you eating dandelion and amaranth and stuff like that, those nourish the cells on a whole nother level more than like if you're eating and broccoli and cabbage and collard greens and kale and chard and all that kind of garbage, right? Um, you want to eat the things that are they're nutrient dominant. If you listen, we all eat food for what reason? Enjoyment.
Nutrients?
No, we eat
Taste,
enjoyment.
taste.
What did you eat today? Be honest, what did you eat today?
What did I eat?
Yeah, what did you eat today?
I had some garbanzo beans
All
and
right. Why'd you have garbanzo beans? You like them?
they I thought they were tasty.
You eat them because you like them, you enjoy them. And that's what we do. And when we become conscious of our bodies and we want to do better with our bodies, what happens? And okay, so we go to veganism, vegetarianism, or whatever we want to do, you know. And so we go in a direction that's better for us than eating, you know, a bunch of meat and scavengers and stuff like that. But we select the things that we eat because we enjoy them. We don't eat because, or we don't go to the store and say, "Oh, I'm suffering with a bloodborne ailment. You know, I should eat this. I'm going to eat dandelion today and next week and the rest of the week. I'm just going to eat dandelion greens." We don't do that. You understand? We eat for we eat for pleasure. You understand? But we have to understand the purpose of eating is to nourish the cells of the human body. That's its purpose. It's just that the creator made it an enjoyable thing. You know what I
Uh,
mean? But don't get it twisted. Don't put the
I'm,
enjoyment. Go ahead. What are you
uh,
talking? What do you
uh,
want to say?
Thank you. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I really wanted to know, you spoke on how garlic is really no good for you. What about ginger?
You know what?
That's-
That's a good question. I never really researched ginger, and the thing is, I like ginger so much, but I don't eat a lot of
Don't
it.
ruin it for us.
No, but you know what? I will. I'm going to go into it and really find out the real deal on ginger. I never really. That's one of the things, and I always thought about.
And
Well,
turmeric.
And turmeric.
and okay, turmeric's okay, right? But it's been so played with and cultivated and everything else. You know, they say, "Oh, this is a power food." Turmeric is not a power food. You know what I
And
mean?
one
Okay.
more. Speak on parsley.
Parsley is okay. You know, it's okay. It's hybrided, but and played with, you know, and cultivated and everything else, but it won't hurt you. It's better than eating. It's really actually better than eating kale and collard greens and all that kind of crap. You
So
know,
Parsley.
you're saying that we should, are you saying that we should are you saying that we should absolutely take garlic out of our diets?
no,
Oh,
this okay. This is why I say you don't have to be religious about it because listen, most people cook with garlic, right? You're not if like for me, I'm not going to say I don't ever buy garlic, but it's very rare that I'll buy garlic. You know what I mean? Um, if I'm cooking, every now and then I may put some garlic in something that I'm cooking. You know what I mean? Because it does enhance the flavor. And like I said, we eat because we enjoy it. You know what I mean? If you take the enjoyment out of it, golly, you know. Uh, so this is why I say don't get religious. Know what you're eating. And that's the thing. You have to learn and be obedient to what you learn and control, because ultimately your body and your health is on you. Physician, heal thyself. You understand?
Mhm.
Your healing is on you. It's not on anybody else. For you to go to a doctor and ask for healing is kind of like, I don't know what to say. Kind of retarded or something. You know, it kind of doesn't
Uh,
make sense.
It's
Because
idolatry. It's
well, yeah, because
idolatry.
look at this. It's like when I used to do my lectures, I used to ask, I say, how many sisters in the room have born offspring? And a bunch of hands would go up, right? And I'd say, okay, very good. How many of you had delivered your child at home? And generally there was no hands, or maybe one, two hands might go up in a room, right? And I say, where'd you have him? Where'd you go to the hospital? And they all go, yeah, 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 yeah. And I say, why? Because, well, that's what we thought we were supposed to do. We've been programmed to do and all that. I said, exactly. I said, pregnancy is not an illness, right? Pregnancy, think about this. Pregnancy, human beings is the only life entity that that I know of, only form of life that goes to somebody else to have its help delivering its offspring. That don't even make sense, right? And I used to tell, if I kidnapped
that is so profound.
if I listen to this, if I kidnapped a pregnant woman and I dropped her on a remote deserted island, and I made sure that everything that she needed to live, her food, shelter, raiment, everything, clothes, everything was there for her to survive, and I came back 5 years later, you know what? She'd have a child 5 years old, happy and healthy, and they'd be doing the dang on thing. Because it's already in every woman that's created, it's DNA in her body, in her gene, in everything about her, the knowledge of how to bear an offspring and deliver an offspring and raise an offspring. It's automatic.
Avocado. Talk about avocado, please, and how to best use avocado outside of just for guacamole.
Okay, well, avocado. All right, so
Oh, I
avocado,
love her.
avocados uh, like like mangoes. They've been, you know, like the commercial avocado, the Haas avocado, right? That's been developed. It's a commercial avocado, right? Haas. Um, do I eat them? Yes. Do I love them? Yes. But do I eat them all the time? No. Lately, I've been eating a little more than I normally eat. But the best avocados you to get, if you're going to eat a lot of avocados, are the ones that have a higher water content. Those big, real bright green ones, right? That grow like they grow.
Puente,
Huh?
puente. I think they're called puente.
Puente avocado. I'm not even sure.
Mhm.
Um, man, I used to know all the names of all this.
Puente, something like that.
Read
No, they
avocado.
don't last. They don't last very long. You got to eat them like
Yeah, you eat them
right.
quick
You
because
got to eat them right
they're
away.
more natural. You know what I mean? Like right now, I was reading just a few days ago, because it's getting like so many people are really caught up on organic. Oh, I got to eat organic and everything. I want my food to be organic. Now, the produce that you're going to be finding in the grocery stores, all your pears and apples and things that are organic, they have this chemical in it, and I have to pull the information. Okay, I can't remember the name of it. They're putting this chemical in organic fruits that's going to make them have a shelf life of years. Of years, right? They'll be able to put the pear and the apple on the shelf and it look the way it looks for years. That's why you gotta get that. You gotta look into that book, Altered Harvest, and see what they were doing.
Tell us about the avocado,
Okay, no, I'm telling you. So the avocado is all right. Eat it. Hass avocados, eat it in moderation. You understand? just don't go like crazy on it. And if you're going to eat a lot of avocado, like I said, try to find the ones that have a higher water content. Yeah, they're a little different in consistency and taste and everything, but you could develop a taste for them. They're good. I like them. I mean, I like all avocados I've eaten. I've had so many different varieties of avocado. I'll give you an example for people to really check out. So mangoes, next time you you go to the grocery store or you go to the farmer's market or whatever, and you see mangoes, if you see them in the crate, in the case, in the box, look on the side of the box, right? They'll have the name of a whole bunch of different varieties of mangoes, and then they'll have one checked off, the one that's in that particular box, right? But mangoes are named after the inventors. You got like the Kite mango, the Kent mango, the Hayden mango, the Altufel mango, right? So at that point you're dealing with things that are made, and that's basically in all the food you pretty much see in the grocery store. It's made, it's fabricated. I call it controlled substances. You know what I mean? Every once in a while you might see some watercress or something natural in the grocery store, but it's very rare. Almost everything, the grocery store is an outlet, direct outlet for the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry actually makes the seed that produces the food and the crops that are sold in the grocery store. Read Altered Harvest.
So Rhonda has a question, which mangoes do we want?
Rhonda 14. Okay, so there's a mango that you can't really get here in the States, which is it's smaller and it's yellow and it's little
You get them at the
spots.
farmer's market?
The little small yellow mango with it'll be
The
like
big
spot
seed?
with freckles.
That's
Huh?
called black mango. Black mango.
No, there's a black mango.
Oh,
I think there is a black mango, but
at the farmer's market, right?
okay. Well, I see people saying you can get them in Georgia. Well, I need to know because I would like to buy them by the case.
Oh, they're yellow with the big seed, right?
No, yeah, no, yeah, but they're small. They're smaller
Right.
mango, right? But I do eat a lot. I used to, like when I went to LA, I used to see when I first got to LA, I was blown away because the little Latino women be selling cases of mangoes on the street. And I would buy cases of mangoes and just gorge myself on them, right? But those are developed mangoes. But the one I do eat the most now is what they call the champagne mango, the Altufel, the little golden one, the kidney-shaped one. That's the one. That's the one I eat the most. Why are you laughing?
Now her salt, she has a salt container up there on the superior iodized salt. She's asking you.
Stay away from that.
No, yeah. So yeah. So
Only because I want you to speak on salt too.
Yeah, but okay, but what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to reiterate this: don't get religious over food, because everything is adulterated, right? Your health is in the mastery of fasting. So you have to master fasting. You got to do it, and you got to work on cleaning your colon, right? They go hand in hand. If your colon is blocked, which everybody's colon is, unless you've done extensive, cleansing on your colon already, you got to do it, whether it be colonics, enemas, colimas, you got to do that. Sabi wasn't big on colonics. He didn't believe, he thought, he felt that was unnatural, and it is sort of unnatural, right? But in the situation that we find ourselves in today, in this world, hey, it's better to do them than not. You know what I mean? Because getting the herbs that'll clean you out as effectively as doing colonics and things like that is a little bit difficult. You know what I mean? So I just recommend people to whatever way they can work on really cleaning the colon. Like, okay, so I mentioned earlier about, you asked me about books. Anybody can read any of the books on Max Gerson, M-A-X, and then Gerson, Max Gerson, because Max Gerson was a medical doctor, and in the 1950s, he was curing every cancer known to man. And what he found out, that he could cure people by putting them on fast and controlled fast. And so the AMA and the Cancer Research Authorities for the United States started monitoring what he was doing with people. And they never ever released anything to the public about what he was doing, but they eventually told him to stop doing what he was doing, and he was like, "Why? I'm curing people, right?" And they stripped him of his medical license. So he kept curing people. He got so much pressure from the medical establishment that he picked up and moved to Mexico and started the clinic down there. And so you could find the Gerson Clinic or Gerson Institute in Mexico. You can look it up. And it's been going very strong. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, one, because there's tons of books on Max Gerson, and there's books on case studies of Max Gerson. But Max, if you went to his clinic right now with a life-threatening illness, like you got cancer, they give you 5 enemas a day.
Mm-hmm.
They're serious about cleaning you out, because you have to clean you out, because you don't develop illness unless you have some sort of, you're toxic. It's the bottom line. You got waste in you, you got toxins in you.
That's the mucus, getting that mucus out.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's all about toxins, and waste in the human body is equal to mucus. Like when Dr. Sabi, the very first conversation I had with him, that phone conversation, he's told me about his trial. And I don't know if you people know, but in April of 1980, what was it, 89? No, maybe 86. I forget. He was arrested, and they tried to prosecute him on fraudulently curing
AIDS
and a whole bunch of other diseases, and practicing medicine without a license. So what happened is they sent all his formulas, his products out to a laboratory to analyze what he was giving people. And everything he was giving people was organic. So it can't classify as medicine. It classified as food. So they dropped the charges. Oh, wheatgrass is poison. We'll get into that. He's telling people, it's like, okay, there's only one disease, right? And when he got into the trial, that they fully prosecuted him on fraudulently saying he could cure AIDS and a bunch of other diseases, right?
It was a terminology, though.
Right, huh? Right.
It was a terminology of cure.
Right, and he used the word cure. And so, and people always used to tell me, don't use the word cure. But I said, I'm not tripping on using the word cure. I said, that's the word that people understand. It has the greatest impact and greatest force. You know what I mean? It's a stronger word to use than like heal. You know what I mean? If I say, you come to me, and you have AIDS, and I say, I can cure you, it's stronger than saying, I can heal you. No, I can cure you. And that's what Sabi was adamant about. Telling people he could cure them. They told him to shut up, and he just kept on talking. But when he had his trial, he basically, when it came to his testimony, I tried to get the transcripts of his testimony, because court cases are public record. Just for his testimony, they wanted $11,000, and I couldn't get it. I didn't have that kind of money, right? But he said, he basically told them, he says, listen, Western medicine says that disease is a result of a germ, bacteria, or a virus. He said, I simply disagree. And he said, when he said that, the prosecuting attorney jumped out of his seat and said, well, what is it then? Right? And one thing he told me, that he never attacked the medical industry. He said he never went on an offensive attack on them. He just said, it's mucus. He says, wherever mucus lays dormant in the human body, a disease will manifest itself. And he said, and I can prove it, because he said, I never set out to give anybody, to cure anybody of any germ, bacteria, or a virus. He said, people came to me. The blind man came to me. I put him on a diet and gave him some herbs, sent him home. Somebody came back and said, hey, the blind man's seeing, right? He said, cancer, he gave people a diet, some herbs, sent them home. They came back, cancer's gone. AIDS, same thing, cancer's gone. He said, so what have I done? He said, I'm just trying to strengthen people's immune system and body, and that's it. And the reports are coming back to me. 77 people that he cured showed up to his trial. He didn't ask one person to show up. He told me when he was in jail, he said when they first arrested him, because what happened is he started taking out ads in newspapers in New York that he was curing AIDS. And Consumer Affairs called him up and told him to take the ads out the papers. And he refused. And so he set up an appointment and went to Consumer Affairs, to the office, and spoke with some guy. And the man said, we told you to take the ads out the paper. Sabi said, nobody tells me what to do but my mother. Right?
So that's a sovereign soul.
Yeah, right. So, because he said to me, he says, what's the first thing they should have done? He said, they should, huh?
Said, please.
You know, they should have investigated to see whether what he was saying was true or not. Instead of just telling him, take it out the paper, right? So he walked out of Consumer Affairs office telling them basically like, F you, you know. He said 3 days later, here they came. The police, they raided his clinic, his little Usha Institute in Brooklyn, snatched him up, threw him in jail. He said he's sitting in the jail cell, and this white man opens the cell and walks in. And he says, the white guy says, ooh, they fucked up. They fucked up. And Sabi goes, what are you talking about? Why would you say that? The white man says, I know what you do is real. You cured me of gout. Sabi was like, man, I ain't never cured you of nothing. I had never seen you before in my life, right? He says, I'm a detective at this precinct. He said, I sent a black detective to your clinic to get the cure for my gout. And I got it. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I have no more gout. He said, I know what you're doing is real, right? Sabi was like, well, why didn't you just come in there and get it? He said, I don't know. I didn't know if you would treat white people or not. and Sabi said, when have black folks ever neglected white folks? Man, you could come in there, right? He said, black folks don't neglect white folks. So anyways, so that was his thing. The judge, after in his trial, the judge says, I want to meet 2 people from every disease that you've cured, and I want to see their whole medical history, right?
Well, before you go any further, the issue that we come into with the idea of curing is, one, you're not really curing anything, because the disease itself is still doing whatever it does. And it's just like what you talked about earlier, it's a trademark, or it's a patent.
But you can get rid of it totally. It doesn't have to be there.
Your body can.
You're right.
But the disease still exists out in somebody else's body.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That's why you can't use the terminology of curing, because you will never cure any disease. Dis-ease is part of the dysfunctionality of humanity caused by society that will never be cured, right? Because it can never be eradicated. So that's why they know that you can't use that terminology, and they get us on the I's and the T's, right? Because they know that you'll never be able to do these things. That's why they can hold you accountable. It's almost like, how can you prove the not thing,
Right.
So that's why they always have us do disclaimers, especially like when we do things like this. And we say
Exactly.
we're not here to cure anybody of anything. Neither are we here to diagnose, right? What we
Right.
are here to do is offer people an alternative in a way of looking at your body from a holistic perspective so that you can now go to your doctor, have your doctor or whoever oversees your health, but you have to be an active participant to even really get the full benefit of what we're talking about today, right? You
Right.
got to use, you have to, hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second. You have to be willing to look at your body and how it's responding and make sure that you are paying attention, because we're not talking to people who eat, jacked up diet, eating sugar, doing all of these things and thinking that you can fast for a day and then turn around
Right.
and eat a Snicker bar and
Exactly.
think that you're curing yourself. It takes 72 hours for your body to actually kick in and start to cure itself. After that 72 hours, then you begin the process of healing. You begin or what we call holing. Your body comes in and it will recalibrate itself. So a lot of what you're saying, I just want to make sure that we're not giving the wrong impression to anybody. We're not here to cure anybody. We're not going to diagnose you. Whatever it is that you have, the doctor has told you what it is. Let the doctor continue monitoring that issue and begin to see the results by what the techniques that Dr. Ahsa, see, it got me calling you Doctor.
Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth.
Awesome Ahsa. Awesome Ahsa, or Awesome Ahsa is giving you and getting that support, because everything that he's telling you is true, right? And you'll begin to, even if you're diabetic, you'll begin to not need as much of your medications if you do what he's telling you to do. But you continue seeing your doctor, let them continue monitoring you, but allow yourself to take sovereignty of your own health and become an advocate for yourself, because you are the only constant in that. And I'll turn it back over to you. I just wanted to make sure we
Okay, yeah. I'll never forget this as long as I live, too, because it was funny. He says, man, I never hear you talk about protein. Why don't you talk about protein? And I didn't even know what to say or think at that point. So I said, okay. I said, you're in front of your computer, which I knew he was because he's writing a book. He said, yeah. I said, Google protein and look up protein. He said, okay. I said, just start reading. I had no idea what you were going to find. I had no idea, not a clue, right? And he just started reading about protein. And he's reading. And all of a sudden, he says, protein is the byproduct of the metabolism of cells. And when he read that sentence, I was like, you got it. You got it. Did you get it? Did you get it? Right? He was like, no, what are you talking about? I said, read that sentence again. Protein is the byproduct of the metabolism of cells. Does anybody get that? That's in this chat?
So is it waste? Is it waste from the cells?
It's cell shit. That's all protein is, right? So that proves that cells don't need protein. The concept of protein is killing people. The whole concept. I tell people all the time, the concept protein is the number one cause of disease in mankind. He used to work for a company that made protein for the cosmetic industry. And you know what they used to do? They used to they would get the one company gets like euthanized animals that they kill, all sorts of dead animals and everything, right? And then what they do is they dehydrate them and they grind them down into a powder. It's called animal meal. And then the company that he worked for would get the big bags of animal meal. And he said they would have to carry these bags up these little ramps and dump the bags of the animal meal and into these big, huge vats. And they dumped the animal meal into these vats, and then they closed the vats and they let in some kind of acid. I forgot what kind of acid. I don't want to say hydrochloric. He told me, but I'm not sure. I don't remember. And then the acid would break all the dead decomposed, animal whatever protein down, and then they would spin it in these machines and it would crystallize, and then they would sell it to the cosmetic industry as protein powder. But protein is like, this is what I ask people all the time too. Since I see you on the screen, Cookie, name a food that is known like consciously that you think of protein.
Banana.
No. You think bananas protein? You eat bananas and you think protein? I would never say bananas. I would say like meats, beans.
Yeah, meats are
Oh
always
yeah,
lentils.
steak.
You know what I mean? Stuff like that for protein. Because my point is things that we think and we look for protein, the way it's been sold to us, require preparation. Even in the vegetable kingdom, they're like, okay, you need your protein. So what do people do? They eat legumes. Well, you can't just eat a legume. You got to run it through some kind of change. You got to soak it. You got to, you cook it in water, boil it or whatever. It's not like you can just pick it and eat it.
Right.
So it's not the first food for man, right?
Well,
first food for mankind is this. I'm trying to find
is
it.
what?
You pick it and you just can put it in your mouth. What I mean? A blueberry, an apple. Well, not even apples. The apples are made. But that's the
Somebody
first food.
asked about lemons.
Lemons?
Mhm.
All right, so lemons, they're acidic. And I'm not talking about citric acid. It's on a pH scale, they're a little acid. Some people might say they're alkaline, but they're a little acidic. The best citrus fruit right now that you have easy access to get that's good for you is key limes. That's the best one. You can get key limes. Key limes are little small limes, they use for margaritas and stuff in Mexico, and they got a bunch of little seeds in them. Those are the best. The limes that you get in the grocery store that don't have seeds, those you shouldn't be messing with too much. Okay, but the thing about protein, right, is, okay, so if you're eating foods thinking, that you need protein, the problem is the human body doesn't handle a lot of protein. So it'll convert into one or two things in the human body. It's either carbonic acid or uric acid, right? And excess protein, and that's the protein that the body doesn't get rid of, right? If you have too much protein, then you'll get either carbonic acid or uric acid. Uric acid causes all your degenerative diseases like arthritis and bursitis and gout and all that. That's all uric acid, right? Carbonic acid feeds diseases like all your anemia, sickle cell anemia, feeds diabetes and things like that. So protein is really something that we shouldn't consciously have in our head and eat thinking that we need to have protein. You understand? Because we don't. That's something that we don't need to think about. You just need to eat. And that's the thing I got to stress is forget about the terminologies, forget about, just the scientific BS stuff. The thing is whatever you're eating, is it obedient to nature? Does it follow the cycles of life in nature? You know what I mean? There's certain patterns that natural plants have in nature that they do innately in nature. Okay, but the thing about protein, right, is, okay, so if you're eating foods thinking, that you need protein, the problem is the human body doesn't handle a lot of protein. So it'll convert into one or two things in the human body. It's either carbonic acid or uric acid, right? And excess protein, and that's the protein that the body doesn't get rid of, right? If you have too much protein, then you'll get either carbonic acid or uric acid. Uric acid causes all your degenerative diseases like arthritis and bursitis and gout and all that. That's all uric acid, right? Carbonic acid feeds diseases like all your anemia, sickle cell anemia, feeds diabetes and things like that. So protein is really something that we shouldn't consciously have in our head and eat thinking that we need to have protein. You understand? Because we don't. You don't. That's something that we don't need to think about. You just need to eat. And that's the thing I got to stress is forget about the terminologies, forget about, you know, just the scientific BS stuff. You know, the thing is is whatever you're eating, is it obedient to nature? You know, does it follow the cycles of life in nature? You know what I mean? There's certain patterns that natural plants have in nature that they do innately in nature. There's a
Are you
great
talking about plants like cannabis?
No, cannabis is all screwed up. That's not even funny. You shouldn't even smell cannabis. It's terrible. It's been hybridized, played with, manipulated, junk. It's terrible, right?
Okay.
At this
Okay.
point in time in history,
Yes, Asa.
and really, my issue with cannabis is that it's being abused, right? And people are smoking it. You know what I mean? Because I believe if Dr. Sebi did not smoke cannabis, I believe he would be alive right now, right? Um, if you feel it's necessary for you and you need cannabis, make a tea and drink the tea. You understand? That's friendly to your body. Smoking it is not friendly to your body. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm going to say on cannabis.
Okay,
So,
let's open up
Okay.
the mic and let's have, we got a couple people that have questions that they're saying that they didn't necessarily get answered. So Rhonda, you still here? You want to unmute your mic for me? Rhonda?
I had a
Rhonda?
question earlier about what minerals support the immune system and address.
Well, okay. Your immune system is, what's your immune system? Is your skin, your lymphatic system, and your blood. Those are the major organs, functions of the immune system, right? So magnesium, you have to have. You know what I mean? Iron, you have to have. I'm not even sure off the top of my head what mineral addresses.
What about cell salts?
Well, Sessler, Sessler, the guy, the father of what they say of cell salts. I never got really into cell salts. The book that I have that wrote it was the person responsible for the information, and I don't know if he actually wrote it. He did write the foreword in the book, or I think the foreword in the book, but was Dr. Sebi's teacher, George Sevilla, and his family. He started a herbal store in East Los Angeles called Herbs of Mexico. And what happened is they used to sell the book, and the government came in and raided his shop, and they made them stop selling the book until they made some changes to the book. So a lot of the original information in the book was removed. Well, I finally got a copy thanks to my man Julian. Right, Julian? I guess you're there. You should be there.
What's
I
the
got
name
it. I got it.
What's the name of that?
Oh, the book?
Yes.
Herbology for Home Study.
Mama, is it Mama Yana? Did you have a question about, you want to come on the mic and ask your question? While she's, baby.
I'm traveling. Sorry, y'all.
Hey.
Hi, Mama Yana.
Hey, Shannette, it's so good to see your face.
It's good to
and
see
blessings
you.
to everyone here. I was wondering about nuts, Asha. You haven't spoken about whether raw nuts are healthy or not, and
Okay.
which one.
Ooh, that's a topic of discussion. Nuts are kind of like a protein food. So nuts, just eat them in moderation. Don't go crazy on them. I know we like them. I like them. I was eating almonds just before we started. Almonds it's a strange thing because almonds have a lot of really good qualities. Almonds do have like cyanide, in them. When almonds are roasted, it gets rid of the cyanide basically. Um, and I don't know if you know that cyanide is it destroys brain cells, kills the brain. Cyanide is what
Information. I used to eat
kill,
so many.
huh? Cyanide is what kills what the Indians in the Amazon use to anesthetize and kill animals when they're hunting. And you know where they get the cyanide from?
No.
Cassava. Cassava.
Okay, so
Cassava is the number one worst thing that human beings eat. It contains more cyanide than any other plant that humans eat. It destroys more brain cells than anything that humans eat, right? What happened is the Portuguese brought the cassavas back to the New World, what they call it, not the New World, the Old World. And then they started doing, their little games and started working on developing a cassava that didn't have the cyanide in it because the indigenous people in the Amazon, they take the cassava and they take the cyanide, which is in the form of starch, they leach it out and then they use it to make their fabric stiff and stuff like that. Um, that's how they do it, and then they'll eat a little bit of it. You know what I mean? But they'll eat some of it, but they leach it and get the toxins out of it, right? So the Portuguese developed a cassava that didn't have as much of the toxins in it. They felt was good for human consumption, and then they brought that cassava all over the world. That's why it's all in the Caribbean and in Africa and everything else, because that plant does not grow in those regions of the earth. It was transported there by the Portuguese, but that's the worst thing. So almonds contain that. Cashews are really bad for you, and I love cashews. So I eat them every now and then, but cashews are extremely acidic. Matter of fact, cashews, if you get the juice of a cashew on you before before they process the cashews and everything, it'll give you like a second-degree burn. Yeah.
What
And
about
huh?
pine nuts?
Pine nuts are okay to eat. Yeah, those are that's one of the better nuts to eat. Pine nuts, walnuts you can eat. Pecans you can eat.
Pistachios.
No, I love
No.
pistachios. I love them, but they're not good. I love pistachios.
is there any nut that's good for us?
Well, you can eat, like I'm saying, you can eat pine nuts, you can eat walnuts, you can eat what do you call it? Pecans. They're not so bad. Macadamia nuts are no good. Like I said, pistachios are no good.
What
Peanut, I
about
know sucks.
maple?
Peanuts are really no good. Brazil nuts are really no
Yellow,
good.
you can open up your mic and go ahead and ask the question. Yellow.
Okay, hi everybody. Quick question. So does he have a list of items to eat and not to eat?
I have a generic little list. I'll get that to Shannette, and so she can get it to people. Maybe we could post it or something like that.
Yeah, we'll put it on side
Yeah. Hey,
Google Doc.
what was your name that just spoke? Yelem?
Yellow.
Yalam.
Where are you from?
It's Ethiopia.
Oh gosh.
Why?
Salam.
Tanasteling. Tanasteling.
Yelem knows real food. You do. You know what one of the best things you can eat in the grains? Teff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Teff is a phenomenal grain to eat.
But I don't know if we're getting the pure teff like
Yeah.
back home.
I know.
Because the one they produce is here, and I don't trust them because I'm sure they messed up with some.
Yeah, they grow it. They were growing it in Idaho.
So I don't think it's 100% natural. So I highly doubt them. But we got no choice.
Mm-hmm. But it's good for you. Teff is really good for you. I love teff. I use teff for a lot of different things. A lot of different things.
So,
So what about teff compared to quinoa?
Totally different. Totally different.
Or amaranth?
I can't compare them. I would say that out of the three, probably, I don't know, teff is like a power food, but amaranth is amazing food. You know what I mean? I mean, amaranth will get, I don't know teff that well to say that, and you probably can just solely live off of teff, but amaranth, you could solely live off of amaranth and your body would have everything that it needed eating amaranth. And we're talking about amaranth, the grain at this point, people, which is the seed of the plant, the green leaf amaranth plant. Quinoa is good, but quinoa is a little binding. So you gotta, be careful with quinoa eating.
What do you mean when you say binding? What do you mean by? What do you mean when you say a little binding?
It's a little binding. So okay, so when I talked about the body being a juicer, right? So what happens? All your food you eat, the body separates the liquid from the solid, right? When the solid gets down into the small intestines and then in the colon, the small intestines uses a lot of that water, right? That's the residual that's left in whatever you have eaten. That's why starches, meat are really wreak havoc on the colon, because meat has no fiber, right? Starches, when you take water out of them, what do? They get hard and become pasty and gluey, right? And they clog your colon up. So it's like I tell people, if you're a meat eater, you need to consume more raw vegetation than you do meat. And eat your meat, but consume a lot of raw vegetation if that's what you feel like you need it, because that meat is going to slow your metabolism down and it's going to clog up your colon and leave you susceptible to a whole bunch of health issues, right? And the same thing with starches. And quinoa, when you take the moisture out of it, it gets a little binding, right? Whereas amaranth, you won't have that problem. You know what I mean? You eat a bunch of amaranth is going to make you go. You're going to I used to give my babies amaranth, and I used to make a baby formula using amaranth, right? And I used to hate feeding my babies amaranth because cleaning their diaper, there was no such thing as cleaning their diaper. I used to have to pick them up, take them in the shower, and turn on the shower and rinse them off, because you couldn't even wipe the amaranth. It was just all over. But so teff, very good grain to eat. Amaranth, very good. Quinoa, okay. Spelt, okay. Rye, okay.
Couscous?
Buckwheat, okay. No, couscous is not a grain. Couscous is a pasta. Couscous is durum wheat made into is pasta balls.
So we got a question about sweet potatoes and yams. All right.
I saw that. That was coming up next, right? Okay. Sweet potatoes are garbage. They're not good for you. Yams are better for you than sweet potatoes. Just don't go crazy eating them because they're starchy, right? If you could get the wild yam, you'd be better off eating wild yams in moderation. But you just got to be careful. Just, a lot of people like them, you know what I mean? But they're starch.
What about mushrooms?
That's a whole nother topic of discussion. That is a whole nother topic.
I mean, we know that they're. I mean, but are they better for us than meat?
The meat?
Are they better for us than meat? Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I'm in a real quandary about mushrooms right now, because I love mushrooms. Don't get me wrong, I love mushrooms. All right. But yeah, I have to do some real deep research on them. You know what I mean? Because they're coming from a different energy. That's what I can say. They're coming from a different energy. They don't have chlorophyll. They, you know, they're just a different thing. And but they've proven to be, you know, they've been proven to be good, you know, on a lot of levels. So, you know, there's some mushrooms like lion's mane or for healing. They're very good, you know. But like Mama Ayana said, they're very earthy. Yeah, they're very earthy, all right. Like Sadie used to talk about the mycelium network, you know, and how they communicate and how they run. The mycelium network runs under the topsoil, and it travels like it's like a webbing, you know. So yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to say don't eat them, you know, because I really don't know at this point. Would tell people to kind of stay away from kombucha. You know, kombucha is very acidic. Um, a lot of people are like really big into kombucha thing, but you know, it's very acidic. It lives off of sugar too. That's one clue. Another thing, someone asked about wheatgrass and barley grass, right? Bad news. Bad news. Wheatgrass is poison, and I'll tell you why. So what made wheatgrass famous was a woman named Anne Wigmore. Anne Wigmore was a German that came through the whole Holocaust thing and got to the United States as a little girl, and she was very sickly, and she wanted to get better. So what she did is she started studying animals. She said, well, animals, what do they do when they get sick? They fast and they'll eat grass, right? Because she specifically started watching a cat. Or I guess she had a cat or cats, and she would watch them, and they would eat grass, right? So she said, this is how she determined that wheatgrass was so good. She took a bunch of trays of different grasses and put them in the house to watch the one that the cats would eat. And the cats were eating the wheatgrass the most. But there's only one problem. Way back then, the wheat then is not the wheat that you're getting today. Trust me. And I'll get into it a little bit, right? So she determined that the wheatgrass was the grass, and she ended up getting her health together and everything. And then she ended up opening some health clinics. If anybody heard of the Optimum Health Clinic and the Hippocrates Health Clinic, those are Ann Wigmore's. They came from Ann Wigmore. So, but the problem with wheatgrass nowadays is that, first of all, they tell you, this should be one big clue. They tell you don't drink more than 4 ounces a day of it, right? If it's so good for you, why can't I drink 8 ounces or 12 ounces a day, right? Wheat is a very, very caustic acid, wheatgrass juice. If you really look at what wheat does to human beings now, when they eat it, it causes all sorts of health complications, allergies, you know what I mean? Like it feeds yeast infections and all sorts of funguses. That's what wheat, you know, that's what wheat does. Wheat has been so hybrid. There's nothing even natural about wheat anymore. You can look here's the name of a guy you can look up. His name is Norman Borlaug. I think it's Borlaug. Norman Borlaug. They call him the apostle of wheat. He started developing all sorts of different varieties of wheat. And his development of the varieties of wheat that he developed, he started teaching. Countries would hire him, like India hired him, and so to teach his methods of wheat development, coming up with different strains and new varieties. What we eat today as wheat is so far removed from being fit from human consumption. It's like potatoes. Potatoes are killing people.
Yeah.
You know, and I like them. I mean, I'm not gonna say I don't eat potatoes, right? I'm not gonna. I just, you know, I'm dispensing information. You know,
Everything in moderation though, right?
well, I wouldn't even say everything in moderation, yeah, but cleansing. You have to learn how to cleanse. If you don't learn how to cleanse, it's a wrap.
Okay, so
Okay.
before we let you go, because we know we got maybe a couple more questions. Let's talk about, we talked about fasting. How do we, when we have really a lot of inflammation going on in our bodies and we have what we call chronic illness, what do we do to really jumpstart our immune system and get it going so that we can get the inflammation moving and our systems working again?
Stop eating.
Now tell us about tourmatia.
That was coming up, right?
Yeah, we know about the not eating part. We talked about
Right.
fasting.
Okay, so there's a plant called tormentia. It's the word torment and an ILLA. For me personally, that's the most powerful plant that you spelled it wrong.
I did?
Yeah,
Oh,
TOR.
TOR.
Man, I can't even tell you
Is this correct?
what I've done with that plant. I'll just give a few. I gave a man that was supposed to have his legs amputated because he had gangrene in both his legs. They were going to amputate both his legs right above the knees. And this is back when my business partner was alive. We gave the man, we loaded him up on tormentia. That man got both his legs, and he was scheduled for the amputation. And the tormentia stopped it in his tracks. You firsthand saw what the tormentia did to the boy's eye, right? Jamie knows what the tormentia did for him. Tormentia, my dog got bit by a copperhead snake this summer, and I was out of town, and my son was freaking out because his whole head swelled up like a basketball. I told him, I have some tormentia in the house in the cabinet. Get him tormentillas every day. Get it in him every day. And
so how did you do it? Did you make it into a tea?
No, for the dog, I just put it in his food, mixed it in with his food, right? But I was just eating it earlier. Oh, I have a bag I keep with me. So what I do is just take the chopped root and put it in my mouth like someone does chewing tobacco, and just suck on it all day. You know, I put it in my mouth and suck on it. But tormentia, they make a lot of pharmaceuticals from tormentia, number one. Number two, tormentia will neutralize any venomous substance. If you get bit by any venomous creature and you have tormentia in your system, it'll neutralize the venom, right? Tormentia will also get rid of any tumors. It'll get rid of any infections. It'll stop any bleeding, right? So for me, you know, because I'm not like as knowledgeable on herbs as Sabi, I have certain herbs that he taught me about and certain herbs that I learned about through George Sevilla. But tormentia for me is the number one herb that I work with. You understand? Because I tell people all the time, if you kept tormentia in your body, enough of it in your system every day, you wouldn't have too much to worry about when it comes to illnesses. You know, tormentia in your body, enough of it in your system every day, you wouldn't have too much to worry about when it comes to illnesses. You know, if you supplemented tormentia with like yellow dock and burdock and dandelion, some good blood purifiers, you'd be jamming.
And you could do that all in one tincture or all in
You
one
could
tea?
you could do
Drink it all at the same time?
at one time if you wanted to. Yeah.
Okay, so what are the cautions we need to have when it comes to the tormentia though?
The cautions?
What cautions? Should we eat? Do we need to eat? You know, does it?
Oh yeah, the only caution, because tormentia has no toxic principle, right? So it's not going to hurt you in any way. The only thing that so tormentia is a heavy astringent, it has tannins, right? Like tannins. So what it does is just like sucks the life out of things. You know what I mean? So if you have a tumor in you, it just like basically sucks it dry, kind of, you know, and it shrinks it. I found if you make it into liquid, it will it has, if you're not used to it, one, and you take too much and you take it on an empty stomach, it can make you pretty nauseous. It can make you throw up too. I've thrown up on it plenty of times, you know. So you have to learn how to work with it, one, and learn how to work with it with your body and yourself, right? Anybody got any more questions?
I have a quick question. I was looking into the chaparral you mentioned. Is it chaparral yucca?
Mm-hmm. Yep, chaparral.
Is it chaparral yucca though? I've never seen it
Yucca.
before.
I never heard of chaparral yucca. Chaparral is a desert like little bush. I can't. And the leaves are real small, right?
Mhm.
And anytime I eat and taste it, to me it tastes like an antibiotic, like a chemical antibiotic. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Yeah. Yes. Ionis is known as tumbleweed.
I've seen, since you described it, I know what you're talking about. So do I eat it or do I turn it into a tea?
Oh, you can put it in tea.
Okay.
To me, I don't like the way it tastes, but I'm at the point now where I don't even care about taste. I just drink it, you know, whatever.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any more questions? Any more questions? I know there's plenty more I wanted to say, but I don't know what to say.
Well, you know, I feel like we're gonna have to have you back. I think that, you know, it's been quite enlightening and wonderful information. I think it's too much to cover in one day. I think it's just too much to cover in one day. And I think people will walk away and they'll start to incorporate the things that you're talking about, and then other questions will come up. And everybody that's here, I hope you guys recognize yourself as healers in your own family and your own communities. And this information that you're getting today is not just for you. This information is for your mothers, your sisters, your brothers, your cousins. It's for you to share so that we begin to understand the simplicity of health. Health is not complex. Illness is complex. Illness is your body figuring out how to fight the world that we live in, but your health is always very simple. It's always asking you to come back to the most simplest part of yourself to understand that. And that's why it's just two aspects: understanding yourself as the acid aspect of yourself or the alkaline aspect. You understand that part, then you can gauge where you are in your healing journey.
So how about genetics? When you're coming from, say, different parts of the world and you got 4 backgrounds of families, and some of us do.
Right.
So what do you do in that process? I know you're doing the understanding of taking the nutrition.
Right. So how I deal with genetics, because like Sabi was big on the concept, right? You know, saying that, you know, we came from like a more tropical environment and everything, so we should be eating that food. It's a simple fact that, you know, in tropical environments, there's more diversity of life and food in those environments, right? So we should be eating and trying to eat from those places if we can. But with any geographic region that you live in, except for places like Antarctica or something like that, you know what I mean? There's going to be some sort of diversity of plant life and nature that will nourish you. And so if we need to be focused on nature, eating real food, really, and natural food, things that are obedient to nature. You know what I mean? Yeah, if we can get things that are more tropicals, like I was watching something the other day, and I got introduced to about 5 or 6 fruits that I never knew existed, and from tropical environments. I was like, wow, I didn't even know these things. And it's like, you know, I see those things, I just want to like I want to go there and I want to try them, you know. But I just tell you this, I don't. It's like getting caught up in the protein and all those concepts. I don't really deal with those because I've seen what what works. You know what I mean? Without entertaining those concepts. You know what I mean? It's like Sabi didn't. He talked about genetics, but he didn't entertain anything related to blood type. Arnold Ehret never entertained anything like blood type. Claudio Galen was like one of the first probably the last real healer and European, and you know, he didn't. The real herbalists and healers, they're not looking at it from that perspective, like your blood type.
I just mentioned about drinking water. I don't know if you talked about that at all. How much, people should drink, or what kind of water, that type of conversation.
We can get into all that. Water is vital, right? The body has to be hydrated, and especially I tend to not drink a lot of water. I do enjoy drinking water. I just don't drink a lot. I drink a lot of coconut water, more than anything. But you have to stay hydrated. If you're not eating a lot of high water content foods, which are fruits and green leaf vegetables, pretty much like chayote and things, then you need to drink plenty of water. You know what I mean? To keep your body hydrated. And how you know that your body is hydrated? Just look at your urine. If your urine's yellow, you need more. Your urine should be clear, you know, or just a slight hint of yellow in it. But the clearer your urine is, the better your body's being hydrated and your cells are getting cleansed. And you know, there's different. I don't, like, a lot of people are into the alkaline water and everything. I don't deal with water that has been made alkaline by machines. That's something that I don't do, because you're trying to tell me that man has the capacity to make these little metal platelets and put it in this machine, and you can put some tap water in there. It's going to filter it, and it's going to do what nature does by letting the water run through the earth and, you know, through layers and layers of sediment and rock and everything else to get alkalized and cleansed. I just don't. And it might be fine, but I just don't see it.